So what's your name?
Matt.
Matt?
Yeah.
What's the last name?
Snow.
Smith?
Snow. S-N-O-W, weather.
Oh, Snow.
Yeah,
Okay. I have very bad hearing,
Yeah.
so I apologize. And,
Mine is just as bad. I had a reconstructive eardrum surgery in both ears.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, mine is world-class horrible. And I actually like to keep it that way. The way I can ignore people when I want to.
There you go.
So,
So how do you do these? I've never done one of these sit-downs before.
That's all right. This is nothing more than us having a conversation.
This isn't like Robert Mueller interviewing people.
No. This is just an opportunity for you to tell the world a little bit about, and the folks that follow a heart in motion. Basically a heart in motion is about people that have overcome things and gone on to reclaim their life, basically, or even go on to do other things, that are amazingly incredible. So you were. Tell me about your situation. You were an Iraqi war veteran.
Yes. Let's, I guess, start out. I enlisted in the Army in June of '99. Okay. Graduated from college May 15th. Okay. Not sure what to do, so I just enlisted in the Army with the intent to become a warrant officer. So I decided to become an Army Ranger and become a warrant officer. So I did that. Spent time in Korea, stationed there, and then I also was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, 101st Airborne.
Okay.
And there is where we started to deploy. And so I deployed to Iraq in 2003. It was it's the only thing I'd never done before. Never been deployed into the desert or been to the desert much at all. No desire to.
Yeah, nobody really has a desire for the desert.
No.
By any means. Yeah.
But I was at a...
Keep talking. I'm just going to double check and make sure this thing's recording.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Well, we were... I'm trying to remember where... Okay, now we're good. All right. But basically, simple story. We were under attack one evening, nighttime.
Mm-hmm. When was
I guess
this?
Evening. This is back in April 2003, Easter time frame, 2003. And basically, our position, we were only allowed limited amount of rounds per sight. Our ammunition ran out at a forward gun position, and next thing you know, you hear the firing, and then you hear like it's empty. So I quickly grab ammo, run ammo out to them to continue fire, and I get shot twice in the arm, and keep the ammo, and re-grab the ammo, and then get out there and get it to them so they can continue to fire. Okay. And so no real damage there. Nothing, not a big deal. No major situation unfolded, but they say because I got more ammo, which I think there could have been many opportunities for trying to downplay, but there could have been many other opportunities to suppress what little fire was coming at us. Basically, I was shot twice in the arm. After the battle was over, they're like, "Oh, well, check yourself, see if you're hit," because a lot of times you don't notice those things till later because of adrenaline.
Oh yeah.
And so I felt like a burn sensation on my arm, and then I checked my arm and patted it because it's dark, and my hand is wet, and so it was blood that was running down my hand. And so there we go. I was shot twice, and so they awarded me a Purple Heart for that.
Okay.
And then later on, we were doing a checkpoint. This was recovering. This is months later, maybe June time frame, whenever, I'm not sure the exact time, but we were doing checkpoints. And what happened was these Iraqis, or whatever they were, threw explosives out of their vehicle. So the explosives went off, knocked me unconscious, so I don't recollect too much from the situation, just fill in gaps of what I've been told. And so I was thrown into the back of the vehicle with the person I was with. And he had his leg blown off, and I had, my ears were bleeding, ringing. I had burns down my side, shrapnel all kinds of scars all over, but just of shrapnel and things like that hitting me. So we were taken and put into the back of their vehicle and taken to a house somewhere in the nearby town.
Okay.
And so through that night, on to the next morning, they would continue to come in and try to torture us for whatever extent they could, because I didn't have.
What kind of stuff did that entail, if it's okay?
Well, yeah, I'll let you know. Which we didn't really have the intel or anything worth.
Yeah, giving up.
Yeah, we didn't really know too much beyond, yes, you know everything we know because you can see our base anyway.
Yeah.
Which I guess the idea of that was to gather us and then trade us or sell us to someone else. It's not technically a POW situation because there's like 24 hours or 48 hours or however many hours past a missing in action and all the regulations, but they changed that regulation to award the POW. But they for the torture thing is basically I was tied to a chair, with just ropes and tied to the chair. And what they would do is they would try to come in and take the guy out or do stuff to him because he was worse off than I was. And so my thinking is to do whatever I can to get the attention off of him so he can survive the night. Mm-hmm. Right? So that means like most of the beatings or whatever it was would come straight to me. So they had a baton or some kind of stick thing where they would take it and they would hit me in the wrist and break my wrist, hit me in the knees several times. They would beat me, punch me in the face, pour oil over me, threaten to light me on fire, and then they'd be gone for hours. And so the women of the area or that were around would mm-hmm. come in and try to, take care of us for a second. I guess they weren't supposed to do that. They'd get in trouble for doing that, but that's what they did anyway.
Okay.
But basically after that, the next morning, we were quickly rescued by British Special Forces, and they were doing door-to-door raids, I guess looking for us or looking for whatever they could find. And so they found us, and quickly before we were sold and moved, I guess, Mm-hmm. So they broke in, took care of the enemy, and
extracted you.
Yeah, got us out of there.
Okay.
And so spent some time in a British camp, recovering from injuries. And then after that, sent back home, spent about a year in and out of a wheelchair. Now, I don't say wheelchair like, not like I'm confined or restricted to one, but just the basic mobility is gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if I say a year in a wheelchair, don't think that I was limited to that. Just to make.
Yeah, it's okay. Don't limit it.
Yeah. So basically that was it. Then after that, it was let's get you to speak at this place. Let's get you to speak at this place and tell about this and tell about that. I didn't want anything to do with that.
Yeah.
So basically, got put on the back burner for everything from the military, treated like junk, because I didn't want to do the things that they wanted me to do.
Yeah. Like, what were some of the
just speak at public events, talk about the war, talk about the things that happened, and
kind of add
but make it
kind of add fuel to the fire.
Yeah, make it sound over glorified compared to hero stuff or whatever.
This is the kind of real thing that people need to hear.
Yeah. But I didn't want to have anything to do with that, and so I guess I got kind of blackballed. I don't know if that's the right word to use or whatever it was. Not sure. Basically, it was just pushed aside and treated like dirt until I was able to finally get out. And then after I got out, got a medical discharge and fought for disability I got endowed in 2006 and just now got 100% disability approved.
12 years later.
Yeah.
12 years.
Now, I know under Obama and everything was so hard to move through the VA because of all the corruption in it, because
that was horrible. Our
leadership was so weak. But it's Trump in charge and the things that he's done to revamp the VA to basically, grab them by the balls and say, this is what you're going to do. Okay. It took almost immediately, almost 6 months after reinitializing paperwork, and bam, everything's done.
Okay.
And under Obama, everything got, we're rejecting this, we're rejecting that, or this is getting kicked back. Adding post-traumatic stress disorder, you would think that that's something that they just say, oh yes, you served in the combat area, now you're automatically awarded this for having that.
Yeah.
But it took an act of Congress under the previous administration to get something like that added, where this maybe 6 months, 5 months maybe.
Okay.
Just more paper. I think would have taken less, but they just needed more paperwork.
Now, what are your since you brought it up, let's talk a little bit about the political side of things. Let's how is the VA now compared to how the VA was?
The VA now is still a mess.
Okay.
But I will give them our leadership credit for the things they've been doing to take care of the situation. Before, the VA diagnosing me back in 2006 with post-traumatic stress disorder, and all they want to do is pop pills down you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they wonder why veteran suicide is so high. Well, do you really know what it is that you're giving them?
Agreed.
And all you're doing is giving them pills and dumping them to the side and saying next.
Yeah, using pills to be the doctors, and I understand.
Yeah, so I recently saw a licensed PTSD therapist, whatever they're called, I guess psychologist.
Therapist, yeah. I had to see one myself.
And so...
because very few therapists know how to even approach it.
No, this one was good. He actually had a very biblical approach to post-traumatic stress disorder that you can actually relate. There's actually ways to relate biblically post-traumatic stress and how to overcome it.
Okay.
And the idea was to have little bits of exposure to things that seem to bother you.
Okay.
And so I guess like the fear of crowds, most veterans these days do have that problem because you don't know who's good, who's bad, who's what. In a crowd, there's no control, riots and everything else like that.
Does seeing people with guns on their side bother you?
No, I don't know. I've not seen...
It's not very common here in Virginia, but in some states that I've been to, where open carry laws are readily available, it bothers me, even though I wasn't in a combat situation. I don't know that person's particular motive, so I stress.
Oh yeah, I could imagine that
over those situations.
I haven't seen that situation enough to make a conclusion off of that.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah, but who knows what the world's coming to next?
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully you never have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not anti-gun. I'm for our Second Amendment rights. Mm-hmm. All the way. You know, I have a few of them for myself at home. So.
Understand.
Yeah. I think we should all have the right as long as we're not convicted felons or whatever else there. As long as you can be trusted, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I guess you don't really know that until after.
Now, let me ask you, and I've asked a couple of other veterans this question. And this is not a for Trump or pro-Trump or against Trump statement, but as somebody that was captured, how do you feel about his comments in regards to John McCain and his time as a POW?
Well, the things that he talks about John McCain that you don't see put out is the way John McCain presented his time of capture. His public statements from the North Vietnamese, where he says he's well treated, how he says, they're great here, I'm getting good food, I'm being treated well, puts soldiers into harm's way.
Okay.
Right. And so that is one thing that you are never supposed to do as a prisoner of war. Sure, there's no doubt he went through hell, while he was there. But there's another admiral, I forget his name, he was captured, and he was blinking with his eyes, the distress, the SOS, that it's a lie, that it's fake, the propaganda that he's putting out. And the big thing with the things said there is when you say, oh, our enemy's going to treat you nice, well, guess what? You're more prone to give up in a fight. And next thing you know, they have more prisoners. So it puts the safety of the American people at risk when you do something like that, because you're not, but due to rules of war and being prisoners of war, you're not supposed to do that.
No, and I agree with, and from the little bit of time that I did spend in the military, I was aware of that. But as for that statement, though, directly, I'm not a fan of people that were captured. Did that statement bother you at all?
I guess, yeah, until you, I don't understand that statement. That statement makes no sense to me.
I think it was more of a political firecracker statement, more so than an actual...
That don't know really what he's talking about.
Yeah, it was kind of like, and no offense to DJT, but,
that was
some of his comments are just plain right stupid, and some are very good. But,
there's a lot that are just downright dumb.
Yeah, but like, some of them are just like, make you go, really? Seriously? What?
Yeah, and his campaign, or his administration said, what did he put out? Hold on, let's go check.
Hold on, we got to fix this.
Everybody goes to bed, and then at 3 o'clock in the morning, he starts tweeting everything.
Oh, yeah, then it's like, oh, man, I got my work cut out for me this morning.
Yep. No, I don't...
What are your feelings on where the U.S. is right now, militarily-wise? Just pulling out left and right, and still leaving a lot of stuff unresolved, even though we've been at war for 20 years in this.
I don't really know. I don't really follow it
as
much anymore. You hear so much baloney that you don't know what's actually true, so I don't know what situation to really assess.
Okay.
So I can't...
That's fair enough. Part of the reason why I asked that question, Matt, is to find out whether or not you follow what's still going on over there. It something? It's not something that...
Don't even think twice about it.
That's the right answer, actually.
I'm here now. I'm back. It's not... I would say, I guess it's not my problem.
That's the... that's a big statement, actually. It really is. Yeah. And that is a big part of being able to move past that.
Yeah, I guess until it comes here, and the next thing you know, it is my problem. But then at that point, I'll be willing to stand up and fight for whatever's coming our way.
Yeah. Now, when you were you active duty when 9/11 occurred?
Yes.
Okay, so you were active duty then?
Yeah, we deployed right after 9/11 happened.
Okay. And what were your feelings on the military then, as opposed to feelings that you had when you were discharged in 2006?
Oh, man, we were all gung-ho, all for everything.
Okay.
Let's go kick him in the dick,
Yeah.
That kind of thing there. And then after getting out and seeing the political side of everything, after, injuries coming back from war and doing all that and seeing the political side of everything, makes you just grit your teeth, not at the military, but at the... political side of what happens in not just the military but in workplaces and all kinds of other stuff. And
when it came to your PTSD and your injuries, tell me about those. Tell me what it was like to have that. I mean, I know what it was like for me to have my medically related stuff, but I can't imagine having a war related injury and what that was like.
Just the injuries, or just this therapy and going through that?
Whatever you'd like to talk about.
Well, basically, I guess the injuries, I stopped drinking for a long time. Then I just have a few every now and then. Nothing, nothing wrong with getting hammered every now and then, but not to the extent where it was, because I think I got to the point where, after recovering from injuries, between all the meds they give you and everything else, and I just decided to start drinking and feel sorry for myself. I was 170 pounds, ripped ass and in shape when I was in the military. And then the year after, I'm about 220, Yeah. And so that's because I'm not able to exercise, or not able to do those things, or the drinking, the alcohol, all the weight being put on you. But I guess that was my way to suppress everything, to forget about it all. And
we'll try to.
Yeah. But not till recently, till about October last year.
Okay.
September, October last year did I decide to actually reach out and seek therapy for post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay.
And the reason why is because sometimes you just have to admit that you don't have control over everything. And which we like to think we do, we like to think that we do have control.
Oh, it's the greatest misconception of human beings.
One, because we're men.
Yep.
And two, because, we think that
we
can do it. But it's like...
realizing we can't is the hardest thing.
Mm-hmm. And once you do that, then you can actually start to seek help for it.
What were some of the things that helped you the most with being able to cope with stuff? Was like some of the tricks. Like for me personally, on the bicycle trip, it was coming to terms with a lot of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Yeah, that's over.
Yeah. Oh, I was trying to avoid that. Oh, it goes this way. Oh, nope, wrong one.
Make sure this thing's still recording. Yeah, it's still going. Cool.
Yeah, it does get kind of chilly up here. Wow.
It does get a little chilly up here. I mean, and I didn't even realize. I'm like, and then I thought about it today. Like, we are on top of a mountain.
I didn't bring it.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that just before.
If you need a jacket or something, I've got one.
No, I've got one in my car. I was thinking, it's almost summertime. I'm not taking my jacket out there camping. Sure enough, I think I remember to keep it in there.
Well,
that's funny how it gets so cold up here.
Oh yeah. Well, like I said, it didn't even dawn on me until I realized we were on top of a mountain. And I was like, holy crap, we're on top of a mountain. It's chilly up here.
Thanks. Sometimes, like my wrists are messed up. Sometimes doing simple things like writing with a pencil is hard to do.
Okay.
And people look at my handwriting and it's like, what is this chicken scratch here? It's like, well, I can't, do...
I can't do the normal writing.
Yeah, it's not as easy. I had to relearn everything. But I guess...
like I was saying, on my bicycle trip, part of it was, coming to terms with... Here I was now bicycling across the country after dropping dead, which to me was a huge deal. And, doing something I had never done before.
Yes,
have there been any things that you have been have taken on that you've never done before prior to all this?
Yes, well, maybe not done before, but maybe not done since the war.
Okay.
One thing is camping and going camping.
Okay.
Just taking off and going by myself.
Okay.
I mean, that's got to be hard for anybody to do, but actually, it's one thing I didn't really do before the war either. You always had a group or some, a couple of close friends to go with.
Yeah.
But
being okay with yourself is kind of a different place
to say, hey, I don't do crowds, but I'm going camping at the campground, the North Fork Resort. I'm going to go camping there over Memorial Weekend.
Okay. I
said, why not?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, that's probably the best therapy you can get. And you find out, well, I've been missing out on all this.
I have to agree. I had never been a camper in my life until I was bicycling across the country, and I camped out all the time. Mm-hmm. I found it immensely therapeutic.
Relaxing, enjoying what God created for us to enjoy. Mm-hmm. But I think one thing that made me realize post-traumatic stress and that we have to deal with it is I was taking class, doing a study on the Bible, Old Testament course, and the study was David, right? King David. And the things that he went through in his life made me think of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay.
Because David was a warrior. He was in battle constantly. He cut off Goliath's head, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Right? So chances are, well, I can relate to, I didn't cut off anybody's head or anything, but I can relate to that because I've been in war. I've spent most of my life, my young adult life, from 20 to 26 or whatever, training and going to war.
Okay.
Right? So you think that's a big time period to impact the rest of your life there.
Yeah.
And so reading things that David did, and you think about, him sitting on the balcony, he didn't go back to combat. Well, he's supposed to be in combat. He decided to stay home and not go. I was like, can't blame him for that one. Mm-hmm. Why would you want to go out there anyway after you've been doing it for so long? And And, even if war is a part of your everyday life, it's something that you're still not. No one ever gets used to. But even his sins with Bathsheba and watching her bathe on the roof and saying, man, I want that. I'm going to go get that and make it mine. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing that you think when you've been to combat, right? You come back from combat. Well, in combat, I've done some of the things that are unthinkable, that I never thought I would ever do, And you come back to the real world, it's like,
you can't
who cares? Who cares about rules? I just fought a war, and that's the kind of thinking there. And I was like, well, through this action, there were consequences for all this. And God had a way with dealing with him on these situations. Another one is he shut out a lot of his family, had one favored son and two of them that revolted against him. One of his sons, he even said he could never do any wrong. Well, one thing you don't like after being in combat is dealing with personal conflicts or any person-to-person conflict or situation like that, especially with family. He has one wife, and I guess she laughs at him or something, if I can remember correctly. She laughs at him, and he shuts her off out the door, out of his life forever. That action was not necessary. But the way of dealing with it is David was constantly put in situations where he had to be surrounded by people. He was a leader of a country. Yeah. He had people constantly surrounding him. He hated the cripple. He hated the blind. He hated people like that, right? With a passion. I don't know. My idea is that he was war-torn and saw that too much in combat and didn't want to have anything to do with it. But his best friend Jonathan, his son Mephibosheth, was crippled. Guess what God did? He said, here, I'm putting this guy right here in your house. Mm-hmm. And, that was... You gotta face it. That's what he did. Mm-hmm. And he slowly took David and said, these things one at a time that you're struggling with, I'm going to show you and expose you to.
Now, of course, not everybody's a believer, mm-hmm. and things like that, and that's an area that I stay away from a lot, of my personal opinion, when I'm talking with people in regards to it. But many people know my
but you don't have to be believers to understand history there, because if anything, you look at history.
And it's one of those things that, did you see things that should not have occurred?
As far as what?
Just things during the war that.
Oh, I've seen.
Nobody should ever have to see.
No, I've seen bodies burning on the side of the road, the stench of human death. I've seen people getting shot and being killed.
Would you, if you ever needed to, would you go back to war?
No. If I had to, for some reason, I'm too fat and out of shape now to even think about it. But I'd probably be the first one to get hit. But with this border crisis and everything going on,
that's an honest answer, Matt. That really is. It's not. Nobody wishes to, and I think that's one of the problems. It's one of the difficulties right now, I think, our military faces, that a lot of people, we have been at war for such a long time as a nation. Too mm-hmm. long, in my opinion. Was there anything that you saw from your superiors that you weren't happy with how they handled things? Like, should we have gone further? Should we have done this?
Oh, yeah,
should we have done that? Second guessing. I guess basically being an armchair quarterback.
We were at the doorstep of Syria before we got called back and said, no, we're not going into Syria. I don't know what's classified or what's not. Uh-huh. But there were situations where we had the doorstep of Syria. Well, let's go get Assad and finish that off too over here. But the first war, they stopped at Baghdad.
Yeah.
The second war, they went all the way through. Now we're fighting in Syria. So had we done it all in 1990, we wouldn't be in the situation we are today. So
I agree.
Other than that, I don't know. I'm not that high up in the field.
Not high enough on the food chain for those discussions.
That's above my pay grade. I'm sure for our politicians, even.
Well, you're an individual who has an opinion who was there. So I wasn't there, so I don't have the right to comment on
Yeah.
what occurs during war. I wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Anything going on over there now, I don't know what to believe. So,
yeah,
so many lies and.
There's so much miscommunication, misdirection, and too many questions in regards to why we are even doing some of the things that we do.
Yeah.
And stuff, and I just don't get it, and I don't understand it, and it's, but it's frustrating, you know.
Yeah, nonetheless,
you know,
yeah.
I just would like somebody to be honest about it.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't have to be there, let's not be there. But I know there's more than just, hey, I'm getting out of Iraq. You know, there's more to it than just that situation, and there's more to it than weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah.
I mean, the man nuked or gassed 5,000 of his own people. They did have weapons of mass destruction over there.
Okay.
They did.
Okay.
You know, how else are they going to gas 5,000 of their own people? If that's not a weapon of mass destruction, I don't know what classifies.
Yeah, I don't know what classifies as a weapon.
You know,
of mass
and so we found bunkers full of firearms, rounds, RPGs, AK-47s, bunkers and bunkers. Those can be weapons of mass destruction as well. So I don't know if you're just looking for nukes, but there's a lot more things that are a lot more dangerous than nukes.
What would you like to see different in the way that people are treated, if any, as war veterans? Reason why I asked that is a very dear friend of mine, when I got to San Diego, she's a Navy combat veteran, and she was bicycling back from San Diego to St. Augustine, Florida, the same route I had just traveled, and she was doing it for Wounded Warriors. And you know, what would you like to? How would you like to? Could you imagine would be different or more beneficial to people that came through your situation?
I mean, making things easier to access.
Okay.
As far as medical treatment, help, things that we need no matter what. I mean, people need it.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's people that have been diagnosed and been to combat and been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, that makes you, that if you're receiving pay for it, I honestly think you should be awarded as a part of an injury, a wound.
Okay.
You know, so maybe some kind of recognition that you...
Were you ever treated as a financial statistic and not necessarily a person?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I didn't have anything to do with it. I wanted nothing to do with our government. Yeah. I mean, I think I went years without even applying for any kind of medical help or any kind of financial help.